Hey, everybody, welcome to this live edition of Turnaround Marriage. So excited that you're joining me today. And I want to talk to you about a subject. It's really about a cycle that we see all the time, which is what I call a cycle of pain and failure. And if you're joining me today and you're in either of those places, or maybe even both of those places, where you're feeling like a failure in life or in your marriage, or you're feeling like this marriage is unbelievably painful and I can't even believe it's gotten to this place, this is exactly the place that you need to be today. So first of all, I just want to make sure if you are joining us on Facebook, make sure that you are, first of all, if you search Turnaround Marriage, you're going to find our coaching page. Make sure you like that so that you're seeing all of our content. Also, make sure you join our community called Turnaround Marriage. And you just click a few buttons and you'll join us in that community. And you'll see all the resources that we're putting out there. As well, if you're finding us on YouTube, make sure you like, subscribe, and share our video. That will mean the world to us. Yes, so guys, I want to dive in with this cycle that we see all the time. And for the sake of discussion, I'm going to talk about two different parties, if you will, in the context of the same marriage. The first person we'll call the hurt person. It's not that they don't also feel like a failure, but primarily the main thing that they're feeling is a sense of feeling hurt by their spouse. A lot of pain that they don't understand. Like, why has it been so many months and years of the same cycle of pain? And that person is hurting because they've tried to connect. They've tried to connect with their spouse and to no avail. Certainly there's been those sweet moments, but it's like this. It's like they've tried, and it's like they start to connect, things start to improve, they start to see their spouse coming out of their disconnect, if you will, and things start to thrive. Things start to connect again, and they start to get exhausted because it feels like a one-way street. They've really tried, and then they just run out of steam. And what happens is they go back to the same cycles. And when they do, they go back to feeling really hurt. And what happens is this isn't just a little bit hurt. It builds. It gets worse with time because it's not like you haven't tried this before. You've tried and tried and tried and tried again. And here you are in the same place. And you've gotten to the place where things are just really, really painful. And you don't know how to get out of it. And you feel really stuck. And this pain is overflowing, you sense, to other people as well. And then there's the other person, the spouse, perhaps, often that the one in pain is married to. And this is the person who is in a cycle of feeling like a failure. The other person is probably locked into those beliefs, not only about the marriage, but also about probably their parenting. It probably is rolled over into other aspects of life, including career, other family and friends, and has really gotten into a place where they feel like a failure about most things, especially the longer that things have gone on. And so what happens is they see their spouse not happy and they feel like a failure. And which comes first, it doesn't really matter, but it is a vicious cycle where both are contributing to the pain and the hurt. And that failure person, so to speak, starts to realize that like they're not making their spouse happy. They're hurting them. It's not getting better. And what are they left to do but to think and feel that they're the reason, they're the culprit, they're the main one responsible. And a lot of times I'll even have those people on my calls that will say, I'm the one at fault. I'm the one that has caused these problems. And really, we know, guys, that it's a two-way street always. So, but what do? They get to this place, and the only escape that they have is to like try to minimize it, to try to numb the pain, to try to avoid it, to try to distance themselves from the other, from the situation. And what they actually wind up doing is hurting the other person because they're distancing themselves from their spouse. And they look to every way that they can numb. They'll dive into more or less honorable things like their work. And they're so focused that they're on their work that their work has become their mistress or their focal point of their life. Or they're so focused on just numbing themselves when they get home that they're in their hobbies. It can also go all the way. It can run the gamut. It can go all the way down to substance abuse. And I mean, it can look like all kinds of different things, but the heart of it is they're trying to escape the pain that they feel of feeling like a failure. And the only thing they know, because there's been moments where there has been those disconnect and things started to get better. And then the tower came crashing down and it felt like they went back to square one. Only this time it might have even hit a little bit harder. And so more and more that cycle of feeling like a failure has solidified themselves. And so they've tried to come out of their shells. And what happened? They just got hurt. What happened? Things got worse. And we've had so many calls with people, particularly men, that say, my spouse would actually be better off without me walking this earth. It's so hard to hear it when we see things like that. They're locked into these cycles of these beliefs. One person's here, the other's here, and they're actually contributing to the pain, to the disconnect, the pain and failure that is happening between the two of them. So for one person, it seems like the other spouse doesn't want to put in any effort. It seems like they don't want to try. To the other spouse, it seems like they're ticked off, they're angry, they're frustrated, and they're in the way, and they're the problem. And so what happens is they do need help, because what happens is they start to untangle it a little bit and go right back. And then the vicious cycles get worse and worse, and it becomes deep-seated patterns that we hear people that will say this. Sometimes it's lasted months, but oftentimes this has happened for years and years and even decades. We've seen it for 3, 4, 5 decades, and often been able to help profoundly when couples are stuck in that place. And so what happens is they have both tried to do what they knew to do. And when they tried it and it didn't work, or they tried like reading a book or tried what a counselor suggested here or there, and it didn't work, then they go back. And what is broken? One person feels like they're broken. The other person feels like the other spouse doesn't even want to pursue them. They don't want to connect with them, and they don't feel loved. And then you have more and more vicious cycles that can actually be birthed out of that. But what happens that we've seen so often is that that couple has tried different things, and it seemed to maybe work for a little while. But what happens in the long term is they actually begin to feel further apart, because what they tried, a new thing here, a new thing there, and it only leads you to a setback. It only leads to that couple feeling like, oh my goodness, like we've tried even something else and it didn't work. So what happens, again, I keep saying that, it's like a furthering step. What happens is you get to a place eventually where it gets to feel really, really hopeless. And you start to feel like there's not much hope for the marriage. And for many, it can feel like God has somehow abandoned you, that he's disappointed with you, that there's no hope for you or your marriage, that you're just resigned to have a bad marriage and it's what you deserve. But we know those are lies that don't come from our good Father. The reality is, for those two in that marriage, they're both hurting. They truly are. But let me ask you, my friends, what if there was a very different way? What if there was a very different way of doing life and doing marriage? What if, for one, that instead of going into the paths of the pain over and over again, you were able to find healing? What if you were able to find that healing in the person of Jesus? For the other person that feels like a failure, what would happen if you could actually begin to believe and see what others see? More importantly, not just others, but what God himself sees and says of you. My friends, oftentimes if you're in this place and you've gotten here, it didn't happen overnight. There are deep-seated patterns of beliefs. There are deep-seated ways of thinking. There are deep-seated vicious cycles, not just in your spouse, not just in the marriage dynamic, but in you. And unless those change, unless you get healing, there's no book, no counseling session, no retreat that's going to change this. And you're going to continue to go back. What you actually need is a game plan, a real strategy to navigate out of that vicious cycle individually and as a couple at the exact same time. Because what is going to happen is if you're trying to just look at it with the same set of eyes, the way that you've looked at it for 5, 10, 15, 20 years or beyond, what are the chances you're going to be able to see this from a different perspective when you're seeing the situation, you're seeing your spouse, you're seeing yourself, and it's the same? What you need is someone else that can help you to see a different perspective of what God says, what God sees, and what God says of your circumstance, and help you to break through those lies for yourself and for your marriage, the hopelessness of it all. Because I'm here to tell you, with the Lord Jesus, the one who designed and made marriage to be a blessing to his people, if we are to reconnect with his design, not just in general, but his design specifically for you and your family, things can be radically different. Guys, I can describe this so well because Rachel and I lived this. We walked through these vicious cycles too. And it took actually outside eyes to say, wait a minute, is this actually true? Is this what God says? And it was like a wake up call after wake up call that helped us to finally realize that those same patterns are not what we're destined for. And they're not what God has for us. And so here we are at the end of the year. What if 2022, a difficult year filled with pain, could actually mark the beginning of healing? What if it was in this day in 2022 when you booked a call with Scott and Rachel at Turnaround Marriage, and you were filled with hope of what God could possibly do, looking into 2023, that it could be the best year of your marriage yet? Guys, what we aim for, by the way, just as an aside, for those couples that we do get to work with, we have the privilege of walking with, we don't aim for a marriage improvement. That stinks. What we aim for is marriage transformations, marriage turnarounds indeed. And if that's you today and you're sick and tired of the pain, you're sick and tired of feeling like a failure, what I want to encourage you to do is book a call. Book a breakthrough call with us where we help you to get clarity about those vicious cycles, about those beliefs about yourself, and help to give you, we're actually going to craft with you a strategy to get from A to B. And if we're the best strategy as part of that to get you out of those ruts and to get you the healing, we're absolutely going to talk about that. But if there's something else, we're going to point you in that direction. Either way, you're going to get clarity about exactly what you need to do next to finally get out of this cycle that you know is not from your Father in heaven. And if you want to do that call, all you have to do is go to turnaroundmarriage.com/call, pick a time that works, fill out that short questionnaire. And guys, this could be the best 45 minutes that you have spent on your marriage ever. That link again, turnaroundmarriage.com/call. And I hope to hear from you soon. God bless you. We'll talk soon.